Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement as we continue our series on the 4D's that can wreck your retirement. Stay tuned. We're going to cover Part 2.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist, and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And in case you're just now joining us, our theme of this series is how to wreck your retirement with these 4D's. Last week we covered the D of divorce. Today we're talking about death. And with us in the studio once again, last week she was with us, is our own Juanita Jackson out of our Louisville office. And thank you again for being a guest on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Last week we talked about divorce, and I hate to admit this, and you said it's okay to say this on air. You went through a divorce, but then you've also been through the death of a spouse. So two different things you've dealt with. And I know this is a difficult topic for a lot of folks out there, but just speak to the fact that we have to deal with so many death claims in this office, and you going through the same thing, your empathy, I guess, for lack of a better word, for those people who are having to deal with this.
It's a difficult time for anyone. No one, even if they think they're prepared for that, they really aren't emotionally. And we do deal with a lot of death claims. Sometimes it's been a long situation. Sometimes it's very unexpected. So yes, I have a great deal of empathy for anyone dealing with the aftermath of losing someone they love.
And we are really big proponents of getting everything under one roof. And I think sometimes clients think, well, I don't want to put everything with Tony Walker Financial. First of all, folks, it's going to be diversified. But speak to the fact of why it's so important to have everything under one roof, especially when a spouse dies or even both spouses pass away.
Absolutely. We have families that come in on both sides of that, where everything is under one roof and where everything is scattered about. And so it's a much smoother process for them. The family is dealing with much less. If we're able to help them through that situation, we know where everything is. Certainly at times there are assets they just can't even locate. They're not sure where everything is. They're not sure what they're dealing with. And then there's a timeline with dealing with other firms as well. We're waiting on them to get those claims processed. So it's much more difficult. It takes a lot longer.
Yeah, I speak to that because in our time remaining, we'll kind of change the names to protect the innocent. But to set the stage, I had a nice gentleman, I think he was in his early 80s, come in with his adult son. He kind of recognized he needed to get things organized. He was keeping things close to the vest. Nobody really knew anything. He started gradually getting us information. I was like, sir, this isn't enough information to put a plan together. All of a sudden, I mean, it wasn't 2 weeks later, he passed away. So the son and now the daughter, I never met her, plus the mom came in, and they all admitted that they thought the mom was going to die first. She's still alive, and he died. But speak to how long this has been going on. And keep in mind, this was not our client. We didn't have any of these assets, but trying to get everything just organized.
It's been a few months already getting things organized for the family to locate the accounts, to understand whether there were even beneficiaries added to the accounts or not. Were the accounts, left to a trust, and just kind of unraveling that for them, making the phone calls, sitting with them through the process. Every agency has a different set of paperwork to file and getting the documents to us. It's been very complicated. We are moving through the process, and we will reach the end of the process, but it certainly has been quite a process to oversee.
Yeah, I know with our process, at least for our accounts, I mean, between you and Mandy Houchins does a great job. People are shocked that we take all these details off the table and we handle it for them. We do all the death claim filing. We do all the paperwork, again, for our accounts. But just how valuable that is for our clients.
Well, and often they just feel a little scattered. They're not quite ready to make a lot of decisions. And we are empathetic to that, and also making sure we just get them to the next step.
So folks, if that's you, maybe you've recently lost a spouse or concerned what happens if a spouse were to pass away, why don't you contact us at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Be happy to talk to you at no cost or obligation about your situation. Get it organized and get it under one roof before there's a death. By the way, I'm going to be covering some things on the monitor that will wreck your retirement when someone passes away. Some real specifics coming up. You stay tuned. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where Mailbox Money comes in.
Mailbox Money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into Mailbox Money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I am America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Ornder, and I've got our next Tony in the Trenches right here, so let's get to it. This TNT comes to us from Jerry in Middletown. Tony, I've always been of the mindset to hold off on taking Social Security until age 70. But recently, I've had the itch to go ahead and start it when I retire here in about 6 months at my full retirement age. What things should I consider in starting or waiting?
Well, this is an interesting question, Jerry, and one that I get regularly as people are thinking through when to take Social Security and this idea of something called your full retirement age. So before we go to the whiteboard, let me explain what full retirement age means. Sometimes people will come in and they'll go, well, let's say they're 65, and they go, I think I'm going to wait to retire till 67. And I said, any particular reason? And they'll say, well, that's when I can get my full retirement. And I'll say, okay, but let's say you retired now at 65. Could you possibly stop working? And then some will say, well, yeah, I'd quit working today if I could, but I can't take my Social Security. And what they don't realize is, well, sure, they could take it now at 65. The full retirement age mainly affects other income you might earn. So let's walk over to the whiteboard and share a case that I worked on recently to help this client understand what would happen if they retired prior to full retirement age and these income limits that are put on them and what's taxable and affects Social Security and what does not. Okay, so really what we're talking about is this notion of full retirement age, and we'll abbreviate that FRA. So we're going to pick 3 ages here, and we're going to assume this person is 65 and single just for the heck of it, okay? And they're thinking about retiring, and they're trying to determine should they take their Social Security now, take it at their full retirement age, which technically in their case, based on their date of birth, is age 67, or wait until 70. Now let's start off with what would happen if they wait. What happens to Social Security? These aren't exact numbers, but let's say they could draw $2,500 a month now, but they decide to wait. Maybe if they wait, it's around $3,000 a month, and if they wait even longer to age 70, it's $3,500 a month. If we did the exact calculations, Social Security, as long as you're waiting, is going to grow the benefit by 8% per year. So it's a nice benefit to just leave it alone. But this person's single and they're kind of worried about the future of Social Security, and they're thinking, hey, I'm thinking about working maybe part-time. I've got this huge IRA that I could draw on. Why wouldn't I take it now, or do I have to wait to the full retirement age? No, you do not. The full retirement age at 67, all that means is, and currently that amount for 2024, I'll put it over here, is at 22,320. All that means is if you come in and you make part-time wages prior to this age, let's say you go out and make $30,000, that's going to exceed what you can make without having some of your Social Security offset. It's not the end of the world, but they will reduce those benefits if prior to full retirement age, this person were to go out to work part-time, and now we're talking about wages. We're not talking about income. I'll show you this in a minute. If they exceed this limit for 2024, they will have to offset some of that Social Security. But that's wages. What about earned income coming from an IRA? Let's say you pull out $40,000 and spend it or do a Roth conversion, and you started taking your Social Security here. Is that going to affect Social Security as far as these income offsets? The answer is no, because this is not counted as wages. So, folks, when you're looking at all this Social Security, there's a lot of blanket statements, take it now, put it off. I mean, it goes the gamut. There's no way to really know the best solution for Social Security until you first go through the game plan. Once you see the game plan, then we start zeroing in on this. In fact, sometimes when I show the game plan for the first time to people, we just put the Social Security on there somewhere. It doesn't matter at the first of this. We're just trying to show cash flow, how the Social Security works, and then we can always determine the best way to take the Social Security and when. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Heather, back in the day, I used to do all those workshops. I probably had 3 or 4 months. Remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
And it never failed. And now this was years ago, but it never failed. I'd open up the floor to questions, and people would ask a lot of questions. And inevitably, I sometimes thought it was a competitor out there, but inevitably somebody would go, "Hey, Tony, I got a question. What happens to Tony Walker Financial when," I like that, they didn't say if, "when something happens to you?" And admittedly, 10, 15 years ago, that could have been a problem. Thank the Lord I'm here, but speak to the fact of the strides we've taken now that we're in 2024. So when something happens to Tony Walker, in your opinion, what's going to happen to Tony Walker Financial?
Well, one, hate for anything to happen to Tony Walker. But no, we do have a business continuation plan in place. And so you've been very conscious of that question. I mean, I think that question has followed you around for quite some time. But we have, 3 other advisors in the firm. We also have, like you said, a plan in place to have that continue on, hopefully seamlessly. And we've been very strategic in hiring staff that know what they're doing, younger staff, just so that we've got that continuity in place.
Yeah, I was reading an article, and I think I've shared this on the TV show, but what a lot of people I don't think are thinking about, since retirement planning per se is such a new field, you're going to need an advisor that knows you and understands the game plan for maybe not just 5 or 10 years. It could be 15, 20, 30 years. A lot of advisors are set to retire in the next 10 years. Other advisors will pass away, change firms. So again, speak to the importance of finding an advisor that you feel is going to be around that's local to service your needs long into the future.
Well, one thing you mentioned is having a game plan. I think a lot of advisors don't even have that. They'll pitch you some products and say that, hey, this is a good fit for you. But if they were to exit either by retirement or changing firms, which happens quite a bit, you're kind of left holding the bag and not knowing how to use it. The benefit of our game plan is that any of the advisors in the firm can pick up where we've left off and know exactly why we purchased those products, what they're used for, and how you're going to utilize them in retirement. And so with us being very intentional about continuing Tony Walker Financial, they have the roadmap to carry on through your retirement plan.
Looking to roll over your 401k? Then log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and learn just how easy it is to roll over and safeguard your 401k. Do it today.
The individuals in this interview are uncompensated clients at the time of filming. Their opinions expressed were provided to Worry-Free Productions for use as an advertisement by Tony Walker Financial. Please refer to Form CRS and Form ADV Part 2A Disclosure Brochure for information regarding the advisory services offered by Tony Walker Financial.
Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Miss Darlene Benzik. And Miss Benzik, first of all, thank you so much for being on the program with us.
No, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have lived in the area for all of my life, quite frankly. I'm currently live in Oldham County. I'm a realtor for Caldwell Baker McMahon. Got to give them a shout out. Have 3 sons, and yeah.
And how did you find out about Tony Walker Financial?
Well, my husband and I would watch you. I had rolled over an IRA years ago, so we knew of you, of course. But my husband and I, late last year, started talking about consolidating our finances because we were all over the place. And he kind of spearheaded that because he way back in the day, was a stockbroker. So he had viewed through that lens in terms of he had understanding, I had Zippo. So we had been watching your show like before church every Sunday. And of course, he viewed through the lens of your concepts and strategies, and he was like, spot on. And we both viewed the end of your show. You always tie it back to the Bible. And so that's very important to us. And so we prayed about it, and we came over here and just started gathering all these pieces. And then you all figured it out. It's like we just threw it all on your table, and then your folks figured it out beautifully. So.
Well, speaking of our folks, how has the experience been in working with Tony Walker Financial, and particularly the staff?
Oh, my. I've told everyone this, front to back. Usually you have bad apple in every batch, and there aren't any. I mean, everybody's been so helpful. And to back up just a little bit, when my husband initiated our changeover to Tony Walker, which I'm so grateful that he did, a few weeks later he passed away. So I was, as anybody there who knows who's lost a spouse, your world kind of shatters, and you're picking up all these pieces that you're unsure of. And I will say the one area where I had total peace was where our finances were. And that's a big area, especially when you lose your spouse. But because of that, he was the skilled one. I was not. And so everyone here just kind of led me by the hand, catching me up on all the things he had done and educating me enough as I wanted to be educated. And then in where things were and how it was going to work. And then you sat down with me personally, and I sat down with Trey, and everyone's taken their time and always so patient in a time where I wasn't always on top of things like I usually am. So, yeah, I appreciated everybody front to back.
Well, you're so welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Absolutely.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Tony Walker here, and we are in our series on the 4D's that can wreck your retirement. Those 4D's being last week, and by the way, you can go back and listen to past episodes of all of our radio shows at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just scroll down and you'll see those listed there. But the first one is divorce. We covered that last week. Of course, we're talking about the issue of death. That's the second D. The third D will be next week. We'll talk about decline. And obviously, we're talking about declining health as one gets older and the implications of that to your finances. And then finally, part 4 will be debt. And not the typical debt you might hear from the financial entertainer telling you to cut up credit cards and go deliver pizzas at night to pay them off. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the issue of debt in retirement planning for savers and some of the strategies we use and some of the, contrarian thinking that I bring to the table that most advisors don't understand in terms of the implication of debt and cash flow, how those two marry together. So what we're getting ready, I think we've got 8 bullet points I'm going to be covering here in a minute, but let's kind of set the stage. You are sitting there right now, maybe you're 55, 60, 65 years of age, and you're excited about retirement, or you've recently retired. That's one group of people listening to this radio show. That's our audience, okay? Our main audience is generally 55 years of age or older. Now, in that group, that's kind of what we call halftime. That is the period of time where people are looking forward to enjoying their money. And what I have to remind people at halftime is, it's different for different people what I'm about to say, but basically I call it the window of financial opportunity. And what I mean by that is, and you can read about this more in my book, Live Well, Die Broke, but it's this idea that I've watched play out for years and years as I've met and worked with thousands of savers, is most people in general let this window of financial opportunity pass by. In other words, they wait too long to spend and enjoy their retirement savings. So if you think about this, folks, the reason you save money for retirement is so you can spend it, not hoard it, because there's something looming out there that nobody ever wants to talk about, and unfortunately, that's death. So the point being, when you retire, there's no real magic age to retire, by the way, but let's say it's 65. You and I have no idea how long you might be on earth to enjoy this money. But one thing I can tell you is at some point, we will both die. And the idea of spending and enjoying the money at that point ends. So this is a key implication when you're doing retirement planning. And that's the reason I talk so much about estate planning and dying with our clients is because I'm trying to motivate them to, first of all, get a written game plan from somebody that's a fiduciary like us and has worked in this field for so many years, but also so you can feel comfortable and have permission to spend and enjoy this money before it's too late. Oh, before we get into our 8 things to keep in mind that can wreck your retirement involving your death, I've got a good joke to tell. This is a good one. So, and it relates to what I used to do years ago. I used to do all these free public seminars. I don't do them anymore, but boy, they were a lot of fun. But anyway, and this particular story I'm going to tell, there's a couple. They were in their mid-50s, and they decided to attend a dinner seminar. And at this time, it was about estate planning. So after the dinner seminar, the presenter had shared a lot of things about estate planning that apparently these two had never thought about. So on the drive home, the husband looks at the wife and says, honey, that was really interesting, and I've just never thought about all this and what's going to happen to our stuff when we die, so I guess I got a question for you. He's driving down the road. He said, we got this huge house. If I were to die, I'm assuming you would go ahead and sell the home, wouldn't you? Then she thinks a minute and bluntly says, no, I'd keep it. And he thought to himself, well, that's odd. Well, okay, well, what about the cars? We've got those 2 nice cars. I'm assuming you would keep yours and sell mine, would you? If something happened to me. And she's like, no, I'd probably keep both cars. Now he's getting frazzled and he's upset and he goes, well, what about my golf clubs? I guess you'd just keep those too, wouldn't you? And she turned around and looked at him and she said, no, he's left-handed. All right, enough of that. Let's get to the topic today. We're dealing with the 4D's that can wreck your retirement. We're on part 2, which some of you might say, Tony, I've listened to you a long time, man. This must be your favorite subject, talking about everybody dying. Well, I have to. First of all, that's the way I was trained. Back in the 80s and 90s, that's back when you could only pass $600,000 without getting hit with estate taxes. Now it's up to $13 million or whatever, so that's not an issue. But back then, I was worried about people having over $600,000 dying, and then the estate taxes coming in and robbing the estate of all this money because they wanted those taxes paid within 9 months. So yeah, I was very concerned about people dying and what would happen to their finances. Since that time, my life has evolved, especially since I started focusing on retirement planning around 2001. And now I use the reality of death to remind people that death will affect your retirement plans. Folks, most people in this field of retirement planning are newbies. They don't understand all these aspects. They haven't met with 20,000 people. They don't have over 3,000 clients. Last year alone, we had 55 death claims. We're going to surpass that this year. We are in the trenches, and we see this stuff play out all the time. Incidentally, this is why I'm always suggesting you put everything under one roof. Folks, if you're with us and you pass away or your spouse passes away, or even if we have to deal with your children when you're both deceased, we're going to handle all the details of all of the accounts we have. If you've got these accounts spread all over God's creation, good luck to you and your heirs, because it's gotten more and more complicated to get estate affairs settled. We'll help you with that if we handle the assets for you. Okay, let's get on to the 8 items we picked. There's probably more, quite frankly. 8 items that could really wreck your retirement. And the first one is just loss of the marital bracket. Put this up full screen, Aaron. Folks, this is a huge deal. Notice that if you're married filing jointly, look how much more money you can make before you creep into these higher tax brackets. Well, if you lose a spouse, look what happens. You go to what's called a single filer. Those rates come down. Well, usually income doesn't drop that much, which means there's the potential that now that you're going it alone, your taxes will actually go up. Number 2, the other issue that occurs when there's a loss of a spouse or partner is you lose their Social Security and or their pension. I met with a couple the other day. His Social Security is about $2,500 a month. Her Social Security is about $2,200 a month. He has a pension, I think it was around $4,000 a month, but when he passes, it has what's called a 50% survivor option, meaning at his death, she's only going to get $2,000 a month for the rest of her life. She kind of knew that. They were aware of that a little bit. They weren't sure how that all worked. But then when I said, gosh, ma'am, you're going to be taking a $2,000 a month haircut, then plus you're going to lose your $2,200 a month Social Security when he dies. And she's like, what are you talking about? That's $4,000 a month that my income is being cut. But that's the reality of it, folks. So we can help you think through, first of all, what's going to happen when one spouse dies? Is there going to be a loss to Social Security and or pension? And ways we can try to mitigate those losses so that the remaining spouse is having enough money coming in the front door versus the amount of money going out the back door. We can help you think through that. Number 3, potential loss of wages. Well, this is a biggie. Let's say one of you are still working and you die, well, it stands to reason if you're making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, that's $50,000 or $60,000 that is gone forever. This is why life insurance is so important if you are still working and assuming you're still insurable. In fact, at Tony Walker Financial, we can look at your insurance situation, and if you'd like us to, we can provide life insurance to try to make up that difference should you pass away during your working years. Serious consideration there. Health insurance costs. This happened recently. A person passed away. The spouse was on his health insurance. She could no longer be on his health insurance. She had to go out and find her own health insurance. She went under the exchange. We helped her figure all that out. But the point is, if there's a death, in many cases, health insurance will be negatively impacted, and the cost of health insurance usually goes up. So be aware of that. No one to care for you later in life. This is probably the biggest issue I see among single folks or people who have lost a loved one, is they are worried as they age, who's going to be there to take care of them. If you think about it this way, your partner and you have been together all these years. I know my wife had to go through shoulder surgery recently. Not that I'm husband of the year, but I was able to take her to the doctor, be at the surgery, help her with some of her rehab, be there to step and fetch and do all the stuff. Think about wasn't around, and she had to go it alone and do that. It'd be very, very difficult. So never negate the fact that your spouse is there to assist you in matters that, quite frankly, sometimes we all take for granted. Spouse is gone, more than likely you're not going to have anyone to assist you. Oh, one more thing on this note. I met two different couples yesterday about my age who are bringing their parents into their home to take care of their aging parents. And I would say, good for you. And I know it's been very hard on you. One lady said, you know what, Tony, I have to sneak out on the back deck for 30 minutes to get some downtime. She's recently retired. She's having to take her mom to the doctor all the time. And I said, God is going to honor you for that. So you hang in there. But again, good for you, folks who are trying to help your parents in this situation, because it's the reality of what's going on. Loss of assistance around the house. Now, I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but a lot of times I've met some men out there who are retired and they are good around the house. In fact, one person I met with, I asked about having to call service people and plumbers and all that. And she looked at her husband. She said, he does all that stuff. I don't have to worry about that. And then I looked back at her and I said, yeah, but what if he checks out? Who's going to check in and do all that? She hadn't thought about that. I mean, the cost to maintain a home if either spouse is doing a lot of the work, it's a biggie. Comes into play a lot with large houses that have, big yards to mow and that type of thing. Think of who's doing a lot of the chores, if you want to say that, around the house. If that person dies, that person's gone and you're going to lose the assistance. Going it alone and making financial decisions. This is a biggie. Most spouses, most partners will admit that of the two partners, one usually handles most of the details of the investments. And if that person dies or that person begins to age, we're going to be talking about declining health on one of our other shows coming up. It's a game changer, because usually the spouse that are left holding the bag with these investments, they're on their own. And if they don't have a reputable firm and an advisor they can trust to take over, well, good luck with that. At Tony Walker Financial, we're going to make sure that that spouse that's remaining is taken care of, and we're going to take care of them with dignity and respect and do as a fiduciary is supposed to do what's in their best interest. Next, taxes to your kids. Put this up full screen, Aaron. This is the tax tumor, folks. I know you hear me talking about it. But listen, folks, this tax tumor does not die when you do. The tax tumor will go to the kids to deal with. And in many cases, this could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. There are other assets that could be taxed, but particularly anything that's what's called a qualified account, a 401k, IRA, TSP. We at Tony Walker Financial can help you strategize now on how to deal with that tax tumor versus just dying and leaving it and throwing it in the lap of your kids. So this is concerning you. If you really realize you don't have a plan for not only retirement, but what happens to your stuff when you die and all these implications, give us an opportunity to talk. There's no cost or obligation. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And to talk to me over the phone, it's just simple to do. You go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started, or call us anytime to arrange this phone call at 877-499-9255. Well, between now and next week, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.